gospel, and many others, we heard of an instantaneous healing. Christ answered the prayer immediately. The 10 lepers, today the blind man, Jesus told them, your faith has made you well. I have been thinking, why, and some don't? And especially because I came across a story this week that shed light on the question. When I was growing up, our generation, and even a little bit younger, there was a great threat to the Western world. We lived under fear. Do you remember what it was?
Cold War.
Communism. When we were in school, they even had, they taught us how to get under the desk in case of bombing. You remember that? Okay. Communism was a great fear. And yet, the countries where communism took hold seemed to be countries of faith. Albania, Romania, Russia, Poland, Hungary. And I am sure that people pray for the end of communism throughout, in all those countries. Like the sisters in Albania, the 3 ladies who prayed 40 days without stop, morning and evening. I'm sure there were many, many people who did that, the monastics, the priests. And yet, it took 3/4 of a century for communism to be, well, not eradicated, but at least in Eastern Europe. And if you remember, Italy had the largest Communist Party membership in the Western world, followed by France. The world was really going to fall under communism if it continued. Why didn't the Lord end it sooner? Because during the 20th century, there were more martyrs for the faith in the 20th century because of communism and all those persecutions than there were in all 20 centuries before them. In all 20 centuries before them. More martyrs in the 20th century. Why didn't communism end? And I've come to the conclusion, like the Christmas story, the gospel said, at the fullness of time, when it was the right time. And I guess when it was the right time, the Lord ended communism. Now, if I say that in a history class, everybody would laugh. You know, they'll say, oh, Pope John Paul and Ronald Reagan ended communism. No, it wasn't. It was God. It was God who ended communism. And I think because the world had to change, and he had to see that the world, and that world was ready to change and to accept not only the fall of communism, but to be restored to faith. And the story that I came across was this. Boris Yeltsin was elected as the mayor of Moscow. He was a construction worker from Central Russia, and he was a believer. He spoke out against the party, and he had come to Houston, Texas. He had come to America, and he went to Houston, Texas, and he went to a supermarket in Houston. And his aide said when he was on the plane, he held his head in his hands all the way back home. And all he would say was, oh my poor people, what we've done to you. Oh my poor people, what we've done to you. Because he saw the supermarket, there was plenty of food. People didn't have to wait in line to get in or to find out what was available. Well, now today we have to do the same thing. But in those days, everything was full, and people had no problem. And he went back, and he left the Communist Party, which was something that was punishable by death. And on December 8th, which is a very significant date, because it's the conception of the Virgin Mary, December 8th. The KGB head from Belarus took the president of Russia, of the Republic of Russia, who was Boris Yeltsin, the President of the Republic of Belarus, and the President of the Republic of Ukraine, and took them to Belarus to a hunting lodge, a deserted hunting lodge on the border of Poland. And they were to sign a document. And he said to them, by signing this document, you will not be arrested and you will not be sent to Siberia. I give you my word. And the document was for the three of them to request to withdraw from the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. They signed that paper, and within a few weeks, every single republic did the same thing. And on December 25th, which again is significant, Christmas Day of 1991, Mikhail Gorbachev signed the dissolution of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics and the fall of communism in Russia. Now, significant because of the dates and because of the name Mikhail, Michael, who is the name of the archangel, who is the new archangel who replaced Lucifer and who fights against Satan, and Boris Yeltsin, who was a believer. And I would say that the Lord believed that the people had suffered enough because there were thousands of priests and bishops who were murdered, hundreds of thousands of people who were sent to the gulags and who were never heard from again, and millions of people who died of starvation in their own countries, died of starvation in the land that was rich with production. And the Lord heard the prayers finally and said, well, I think you've had enough. I think you've had enough, and I'm ready to act and hear your prayers. The fall of communism happened without one shot being fired, without any blood being shed, without a revolution, with nobody dying for it. It ended, boom, just like that. And I'm telling you that when the Lord doesn't hear our prayer, doesn't answer our prayer immediately, it's not because he doesn't hear it. It's because there has to be a change in us when we do that prayer. There has to be something there that the Lord sees and he says, yes, it's time for it. It's time for it. So when we say, oh, I pray, but the Lord doesn't hear me. Yes, he does. He hears us, everything we say. But he may not answer us in the way we like. And he may say, not now. You're not ready. Or he may say, yes, your faith has made you well. I'll do it right away. So this story was really revelatory to me, because we all had relatives in these countries. In Albania, my uncle was in prison for 25 years, hard labor. Why? Because he didn't give all his money away to the communists. We've all heard these stories. There were people, a man in Albania who said, again, there's no potatoes. They put him in prison for 10 years. We all have these stories of people who suffered. And yet, the people held on, and they changed to the point where the Lord said they're ready to be given up this system that does not work. They were promised a heaven on earth, and they got a hell on earth. And the faith sprung up in these places so rapidly that today the communist countries can say that they're more spiritual than the Western world. Europe no longer even professes to be Christian, Western Europe, but Eastern Europe, where communism was. Churches are being built every single day, every single week. People are going because they have missed that faith, because they've missed the richness of the faith, because they've been taken away this soul of theirs. And today, that soul has been restored to them. So the Lord always acts, but he acts in his time, when he feels that the time is right So don't despair, ever. If you feel that the Lord is not listening to you, repent, because that's what John said, the Baptist. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Turn yourself towards Christ. Follow him, and he will answer your prayer. Amen?
Amen. Save your people, and bless their heritage. Guard the fullness of your church. Sanctify those who love the beauty of your house. Glorify them by your divine power, and do not abandon us to our hope from you. Grant and teach your world, your churches, the clergy, the civil authorities, and to all your people. For all that is good, everything that is perfect, is given us from above,